Before there were gods, and there was nothing. No stars, no planets, no light. Just a swirling, endless void. This wasn't empty space, though. This was chaos. Imagine the deepest, darkest ocean, but without a bottom or a top. Chaos was a conscious being, a shapeless, breathing emptiness. It was the very beginning of everything. From this immense, silent darkness, something stirred. The first spark of existence flickered to life. 4 powerful beings emerged from chaos itself. First came Gaia, the Earth. Think of her not as a planet yet, but as the very foundation of all that would be. Solid, nurturing, and full of potential life. Then came Tartarus, the Pit, a place as deep and dark as chaos, but with a horrifying purpose, a cosmic prison, a place of eternal punishment. Following Tartarus was a force that would shape all of history, Eros, love. Not the chubby baby with a bow and arrow, but a raw, irresistible power. The force of attraction, of desire, of creation itself. Eros was the engine that would drive the universe forward. Finally, there was Nyx, Night. She was the daughter of chaos, a cloak of shadows and mystery, carrying the secrets of the dark in her veil. So now we have these 4 primordial gods existing in the vastness. But Gaia, the Earth, was lonely. From her own being, she created a partner, someone to cover her completely. She gave birth to Uranos, the sky. He was a vast, starry expanse, a perfect dome above her. And as the sky lay upon the earth, they became husband and wife. A perfect union, or so it seemed. The first children were born from Gaia and Uranos. First came the Hecatoncheires, the 100-handed ones, monstrous beings with 50 heads and 100 powerful arms. Uranos looked at them with horror and disgust. These were not the beautiful children he had imagined. He couldn't stand the sight of them. So he did the unthinkable. He took his own children and shoved them back into Gaia's body, back into the womb from which they came. Next came the Cyclopes, giant beings with a single blazing eye in the middle of their foreheads. They were master craftsmen, strong and brilliant. But again, Uranos was repulsed by their appearance. He saw them not as sons, but as monsters. And just like their brothers, he forced them back into Gaia, deep within the earth. Imagine the agony. Gaia, the Earth Mother, was forced to carry her own children as prisoners inside her. It was a constant, tearing pain, a pressure building within her that was unbearable. She could feel them struggling, trapped in darkness, their cries muffled within her own body. Her love for her children turned into a burning hatred for her husband. The sky she once loved now felt like a cruel, crushing weight. Finally, Gaia and Uranos had a third set of children, the Titans. 12 of them, 6 sons and 6 daughters. They were powerful, and unlike their older siblings, they were beautiful, more divine in form. But Uranos, now consumed by paranoia and cruelty, feared their strength. He feared they would one day overthrow him. So, one by one, he imprisoned them too. He pushed them all back inside Gaia, stuffing her to the breaking point. Gaia was stretched, groaning under the immense pressure. The weight of her imprisoned children was a constant torture. Every movement was agony. Her mountains groaned, her plains trembled. This was no longer a union of love, it was a prison of flesh and rock. She was a walking tomb for her own offspring. The pain was so great, her sorrow so deep, that it began to poison her. She knew she couldn't endure it any longer. Revenge began to smolder in her heart. She had to act. She had to free her children and punish her cruel husband. But how? Uranos was the all-powerful sky, seemingly untouchable. Gaia, from deep within her suffering, began to devise a plan, a desperate, bloody plan. From within her own body, she forged a new material, something harder than rock, sharper than any tooth or claw. It was grey, gleaming metal, adamantine. From this unbreakable metal, she crafted a weapon, a massive curved sickle with a razor-sharp edge. A tool for harvesting, now repurposed for vengeance. She then spoke to her children, still trapped inside her. Her voice was a low rumble, an earthquake in their prison. "My sons," she whispered, "your father has shamed us. He has committed a terrible crime. Will one of you be brave enough to help me? Will one of you punish him for his evil?" Silence. The Titans, cowering in the darkness, were terrified of their father. Who would dare to challenge the ruler of the universe? The silence stretched on, filled only by the sounds of their mother's pain. But then one voice, bold and ambitious, answered from the darkness. It was Kronos, the youngest of the Titans. "Mother," he said, his voice steady and cold, "I am not afraid. I will do this. I will end his reign." The plan was set. That night, as Uranos descended from the heavens to lie with Gaia, she would give Kronos the sickle. He would lie in wait, hidden. As the Sky Father, suspecting nothing, moved to embrace the earth, Kronos would strike. The moment of destiny was approaching. The fate of the cosmos hung in the balance, ready to be decided by a single, violent act. Night fell. Nyx spread her dark cloak across the cosmos. Uranos began his descent, a vast blanket of stars moving closer and closer. Inside Gaia, Kronos gripped the cold, hard sickle. His knuckles were white. The air grew thick with tension. The universe held its breath. The sky was about to meet the earth for the last time. Kronos waited, hidden in the shadows, ready to spring his mother's trap. But Gaia wasn't helpless. She was about to start the first war in history. Last time Gaia was trapped, a prisoner in her own body, with her monstrous children, the Cyclopes and the Hundred-Handers, locked deep within her. Her husband, Uranos, the sky god, was a tyrant, terrified of being overthrown. But Gaia had a plan, a terrible, brilliant plan. Deep in her fiery core, she forged a new kind of metal, harder than anything ever seen before. It was called adamant. From it, she fashioned a sickle, its edge honed to a terrifying sharpness. This wasn't just a tool, it was the world's first weapon, born from a mother's despair and a wife's rage. She presented this gleaming, deadly object to her other children, the Titans. "Who," she asked, her voice echoing with ancient power, "will help me end this tyranny? Who will free us from your father's cruelty?" Silence. The mighty Titans, Oceanus, Hyperion, Iapetus, all of them looked away. They feared Uranos, they feared his power, his rage, all except one. The youngest, Kronos. He was ambitious, resentful, and saw his chance. He stepped forward. "I will do it, mother," he declared. "I am not afraid." Gaia handed him the sickle. The cold, heavy weight of destiny settled in his hand. The plan was set. They would wait for night when Uranos would descend from the heavens to lie with Gaia, completely unsuspecting. That night, as Uranos descended, a vast, starry cloak covering the earth, the trap was sprung. The other Titans, emboldened by Kronos' courage, burst from their hiding places. They grabbed their father, holding him fast, pinning the very sky to the earth. Uranos roared, a sound that shook the foundations of the cosmos, but he was held tight. And then, from the shadows, stepped Kronos. He was just a silhouette against the darkness, a figure of vengeance. He raised the adamant sickle, its edge catching the faint starlight. The motion was swift, brutal, and irreversible. In a single horrific arc, Kronos brought the blade down. He severed his father's connection to the earth, his power, his very manhood in one clean stroke. But here's the crazy part. The violence didn't just end there. It created new life. Kronos, with a gesture of disgust, threw the severed parts of his father into the sea. As they drifted on the waves, a white foam began to churn and bubble. From this divine sea foam, a figure of impossible beauty arose, stepping onto the shores of Cyprus. This was Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty, born from an act of cosmic violence. And where Uranos' blood fell upon the earth, Gaia herself, more horrors stirred. 3 terrifying figures clawed their way out of the soil. Their eyes burned with ancient hatred, and in their hands they carried whips of living flame. These were the Erinyes, the Furies, goddesses of vengeance, born to pursue and punish those who spill the blood of family. The universe was now stained, not just with blood, but with the concepts of vengeance and consequence. Uranos, broken and defeated, was cast away to the farthest edges of the cosmos. But as he faded, he screamed a final terrible curse at Kronos, his voice a poison that would echo through eternity. "You think you have won?" he shrieked. "You have only sealed your own fate. As you have done to me, so shall your own children do to you. They will rise up. They will destroy you." The words hung in the air, a prophecy that would haunt Kronos for the rest of his reign. But for now, he was a hero. He had freed his brothers and sisters. He had liberated his mother. He stood atop the world, the undisputed master of the universe. Kronos became the new king of the gods. He promised a new era of freedom and prosperity. No more tyranny, no more fear. He told his mother, Gaia, that he would be a better ruler, a different kind of king. But the first thing he did was look at his other brothers, the Cyclopes and the Hundred-Handers, who had been freed in the chaos. He saw their strength, their strange forms, and that old familiar fear, the same fear that had consumed his father, began to stir in his heart. He saw them not as brothers, but as threats. So he did the unthinkable. He overpowered them and hurled them back into the darkest pits of Tartarus, betraying his mother's trust and repeating the very first crime of his father. He promised he would be different, better. He was lying. But here's the crazy part. Despite this dark beginning, the reign of Kronos became known as the Golden Age. He took his sister, the Titaness Rhea, as his queen. Under their rule, the earth flourished. Mortals lived like gods, without sorrow, without hard work, and without old age. There was peace and plenty. The seasons were perfect. Rivers flowed with milk and honey. It was a paradise. Kronos sat on his throne, the all-powerful king, bathing in the glory of his creation. From the outside, it was a perfect world. But inside the king's mind, a seed of paranoia was taking root. Power, it turns out, doesn't just corrupt, it isolates. It breeds suspicion. Every shadow looked like a threat, every whisper sounded like a plot. He was the king of a perfect world, yet he was a prisoner in his own mind. He couldn't enjoy the paradise he had created, because day and night his father's final words echoed in his ears. "Your own children will destroy you." The curse was a constant gnawing presence. He had overthrown his own father to gain power, so he knew better than anyone that it could be done. He looked at his own powerful Titan brothers and sisters and wondered which one might betray him, just as he had betrayed Uranos. The Golden Age was golden for everyone except the one who ruled it. For Kronos, it was an age of silent, mounting terror. He was becoming his father. The same paranoia, the same fear of being replaced, was beginning to consume him, piece by piece. He had built a beautiful cage and locked himself inside it. The promise of the Golden Age was a lie, built on a foundation of betrayal and fear. The cycle of violence, started by Uranos and continued by Kronos, was destined to turn again. The very power he had killed for was now his greatest torment. The universe, it seemed, has a dark sense of humor. It loves irony. The son who hated his father's tyranny was now becoming a tyrant himself, driven by the exact same fears. The hero was slowly but surely becoming the villain of his own story. And the ultimate test of his paranoia, the ultimate fulfillment of the curse, was just on the horizon. But Kronos couldn't forget his father's curse, and Rhea was pregnant. Kronos ruled during what Greeks called the Golden Age, but paradise had a dark secret. He had overthrown his own father, Uranos, and a terrible prophecy hung over his head. One of his own children would do the same to him. Kronos, the king of the Titans, decided he would cheat fate. He would not allow any heir to challenge his throne. So as his wife, the Titaness Rhea, gave birth to their divine children, he took them. One by one he swallowed them whole. First Hestia, goddess of the hearth, then Demeter, goddess of the harvest, then Hera, future queen of the gods, then Hades, future lord of the underworld, and finally Poseidon, future master of the seas. Each time Rhea's heart shattered. She watched in horror as her husband, driven by paranoia, consumed their beautiful immortal babies. Her cries echoed in the halls of their palace, but Kronos was deaf to her pain, obsessed only with his own power and survival. The agony was unimaginable. She had brought 5 perfect gods into existence, only to see them become prisoners in their own father's stomach. She felt helpless, a pawn in a cruel game of power and prophecy. The weight of her grief was crushing, a constant gnawing pain that never subsided. But when she became pregnant with the 6th child, something inside her snapped. She couldn't take it anymore. She would not sacrifice another child to her husband's madness. This time things would be different. Desperate and heartbroken, Rhea sought the counsel of her own mother, Gaia, the primordial earth goddess. Gaia, who had seen her own children imprisoned by Uranos, understood Rhea's pain perfectly. Together they devised a daring plan, a desperate gamble to save the last child and perhaps all the others. As her time grew near, Rhea secretly traveled to the rugged, isolated island of Crete. There, hidden deep within a cave on Mount Ida, she gave birth to her son. She named him Zeus. The air in the cave was thick with the scent of damp earth and sacred incense. It was a sanctuary, a cradle of rebellion hidden from the all-seeing eyes of Kronos. Rhea held her baby boy, her heart a whirlwind of love, fear, and fierce determination. This child would not be a victim. This child would be a savior. Leaving Zeus in the care of trusted guardians, Rhea returned to her husband. Her arms were empty, but her resolve was iron. She presented Kronos not with their son, but with a large stone, carefully wrapped in swaddling clothes. Kronos, blinded by his arrogance and haste, didn't look twice. He snatched the bundle and swallowed it in one gulp, just as he had the others. He let out a sigh of relief, believing the prophecy was finally and truly averted. He was safe. He was secure. He had no idea he had just swallowed a rock and that his true heir was miles away, safe and sound. Back on Crete, Zeus was growing. He was no ordinary child. He was nursed by nymphs, kind spirits of the wild, and he drank the sacred milk of the goat Amalthea, whose hide would later become his impenetrable shield, the Aegis. His cries were masked from Kronos' ears by the Kuretes, armored male warriors, who would clash their shields and spears together, their rhythmic din echoing through the mountains, drowning out the sounds of the infant god. He grew up surrounded by the raw, untamed power of the island. He learned the ways of the wild, the secrets of the earth and the arts of war. His training was relentless. He learned to hurl lightning, to command the storms, and to fight with a strength and cunning that no Titan could match. Day by day, he grew stronger, his heart fueled by the stories of his imprisoned siblings and his mother's suffering. He was no longer just a hidden child. He was a weapon being forged in secret, a promise of vengeance waiting for the right moment to strike. Years passed. Kronos ruled on, content in his false security, while Zeus grew into a powerful, magnificent god, his eyes burning with a righteous fire. The time for hiding was over. The time for action had come. With the help of the Titaness Metis, known for her wisdom and cunning, Zeus acquired a special potion, an emetic powerful enough to make even a Titan king sick. Disguising himself as a humble royal cupbearer, Zeus gained access to his father's court. He moved through the grand halls of the Titan palace, his true identity a secret, his heart pounding a steady, determined rhythm. He was walking into the lion's den, but he felt no fear, only purpose. The moment arrived during a great feast. Kronos sat at the head of the table, laughing and drinking, the picture of a carefree king. Zeus approached, his hand steady, his gaze low. He offered the golden cup to his father. "A special nectar, my king," he said, his voice calm, "to celebrate your eternal reign." Kronos, ever gluttonous, took the cup without hesitation and drained it. For a moment, nothing happened. The king smiled, pleased. Then a tremor ran through him. His face went pale. A terrible rumbling began deep within his gut. The potion was working. His body convulsed violently. And then he retched. First came the stone. It clattered onto the palace floor, the swaddling clothes long since dissolved. Then Poseidon, then Hades, then Hera, Demeter, and Hestia. One by one they emerged, not as infants, but as fully grown, powerful gods, undigested and alive, their immortal forms preserved in the darkness. They stood blinking in the light, their eyes finding their brother, their savior. And they were furious. "Father," Zeus said, "your reign is over." Kronos stood, grabbed his sickle, and the war began. For 10 years, the cosmos trembled. 10 years, the heavens and the earth were a battlefield. This wasn't just a war, it was the Titanomachy, the clash that would decide the fate of existence itself. From the gleaming peak of Mount Olympus, Zeus and his siblings, Hera, Poseidon, Hades, Demeter, and Hestia, waged their rebellion. On the opposing fortress, the jagged Mount Othrys, their father Kronos, and the elder gods, the Titans, held their ground. Zeus stood on Olympus. Kronos fortified Mount Othrys. The Olympians were young, filled with a fire for a new world. The Titans were ancient, powerful, and unwilling to yield the dominion they had held for eons. The war was a brutal stalemate. For a decade, the universe was torn by their conflict. Mountains were leveled, seas boiled, and the stars themselves seemed to cower from the divine rage. Zeus hurled lightning, but it was raw, unfocused power. Poseidon shook the earth, but the Titans were as old as the earth itself. They endured. Hades commanded the shadows, but the Titans were masters of primordial darkness. Neither side could gain the upper hand. The conflict was a war of attrition, a cosmic deadlock where God fought God, and the universe paid the price. Victory seemed impossible. Strength met strength, and both were found wanting. Zeus knew something had to change. Brute force was not enough. He needed allies. He needed a strategy. His grandmother, Gaia, the Earth Mother herself, had whispered a prophecy. Victory would not come from strength alone, but from wisdom and from freeing those unjustly imprisoned. Zeus remembered her words. He journeyed to the deepest, darkest pit of the underworld, Tartarus, a prison dimension darker than any night, a place of eternal torment. And there he found his key to victory. He found the Cyclopes, the one-eyed master craftsman, and the Hekatonchires, the 100-handed ones. His own uncles, brothers of Kronos, cast into this abyss by their paranoid father Uranos, and left there by Kronos, who feared their power just as much. Zeus broke their chains. He offered them freedom, a place in the new world, in exchange for their allegiance. They had been imprisoned in darkness for ages, and the light of freedom was a powerful motivator. They swore their loyalty, not just with words, but with their legendary craft. In the heart of a volcano, the Cyclopes went to work. This wasn't just smithing. It was the forging of legends. With fire from the Earth's core and metals that no mortal could name, they created artifacts of unimaginable power. For Zeus, they captured the very essence of the storm. They hammered lightning into a physical form, a jagged bolt that crackled with celestial fury. It wasn't just a weapon, it was the sky's rage, given a form, a purpose. This was the thunderbolt. For Poseidon, they forged the trident. Its 3 prongs represented the currents, the waves, and the depths. With it, he could command the oceans, shatter continents, and call forth tempests from the calmest seas. And for Hades, they crafted something different, something subtle and terrifying. The helm of darkness, the cap of invisibility. Forged from the shadows of the underworld itself, it allowed its wearer to become one with the darkness, to move unseen, unheard, a phantom of terror and strategy. These weren't just weapons. They were symbols of a new order, extensions of the god's very being. Armed with these divine artifacts, the Olympians returned to the war. But they weren't alone. Behind them marched the Hekatonchires, beings of terrifying might, their 100 arms each bristling with the strength of 100 men. The Titans looked on from Mount Othryss, confident in their power. They had faced the Olympians for 10 years. What could have changed? Then, the ground began to shake. The Hekatonchires didn't just fight. They were living siege engines. They tore entire mountains from their foundations. With their 100 hands each, they threw mountains, imagine that. Hundreds of peaks, entire landscapes, hurled through the air like stones. The sky darkened with flying rock and earth. Mount Othryss, the mighty fortress of the Titans, began to crumble under a relentless avalanche from the heavens. The chaos was absolute. The battlefield was a symphony of destruction. Poseidon, wielding his new trident, struck the base of the mountain. Sound, a deep, earth-shattering crack. Fissures spiderwebbed across the rock, and the sea roared, flooding the Titans' encampments. Hades, wearing his helm of darkness, moved unseen through the enemy ranks. He was a whisper of fear, a ghost on the battlefield, sabotaging their defenses, sowing paranoia, making the Titans fear the very shadows they once commanded. And then there was Zeus. He stood on the peak of Olympus, a figure of pure, untamed power. He raised his hand. The sky answered. He didn't just throw a lightning bolt, he became the storm. Sound, a deafening, continuous roar of thunder. The air crackled, the sky ripped open, and a blinding barrage of thunderbolts rained down upon the Titans. One after another they fell, their ancient power no match for the focused celestial fury Zeus now commanded. The final confrontation was personal. Zeus against his father Kronos, the new king against the old, the son against the father who had swallowed him at birth. Kronos, wielding his adamantine sickle, the same weapon he used to usurp his own father, swung with the desperation of a falling monarch. But Zeus was faster, stronger. He parried with a flash of lightning. He saw the fear in his father's eyes, the same fear that had driven Kronos to commit his terrible acts. Zeus had him beaten. He could have ended it. He could have destroyed his father just as Kronos had destroyed Uranos. But Zeus chose a different path. He chose mercy. Or perhaps it was a more strategic cruelty. He wouldn't make his father a martyr. He would make him an example. With the help of his allies, he bound Kronos in unbreakable chains and cast him back down into the blackest pit of Tartarus, the very prison from which Zeus had freed his saviors. The other titans who fought against him were cast down as well, to be guarded for eternity by the Hekatonchires. Their former jailers now turned wardens. With the titans defeated, the war was won. The universe was theirs to divide. The three brothers, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, drew lots to determine their domains. Poseidon drew the sea, becoming the ruler of all its depths and mysteries. Hades drew the underworld, the vast, shadowy realm of the dead. And Zeus, by fortune and by right of leadership, drew the heavens and the sky. He became the king of the gods, ruler of Olympus, the supreme authority in the new cosmic order. Victory was absolute. The age of the Titans was over. The age of the Olympians had begun. But as Zeus sat upon his new throne looking out over his new kingdom, a thought lingered. He had won not just by being the strongest, but by being the smartest. He had freed prisoners, forged alliances, and exploited his enemies' weaknesses. The war was over. But Zeus had learned the lesson. Power doesn't come from strength alone. It comes from control. Zeus ruled for millennia. But his grandfather's curse never left him. The same prophecy that he had fulfilled against his own father, Kronos, now hung over his head like a thundercloud. The prophecy whispered that a son of his would one day rise up and cast him down from the throne of Olympus. It was a cycle of cosmic violence, son against father, generation against generation, and Zeus, the master of the universe, was terrified. His first move was a strategic one. He married Metis, the Titan goddess of wisdom and cunning. It seemed like a perfect alliance. Who better to have on his side than wisdom itself? Metis soon became pregnant, and for a moment it seemed Zeus had found a way to secure his reign. But the fates are not so easily tricked. A new prophecy emerged, more specific and more terrifying than the last. Metis would first bear a daughter, a goddess of wisdom and war to rival her father. But her second child, a son, would be the one to fulfill the curse. He would be the one to overthrow Zeus. Zeus couldn't allow this. He couldn't kill Metis or his unborn child outright. That would stain his hands and potentially spark a rebellion. He needed a cleaner, more absolute solution. So, with a calm and calculated coldness, he approached his pregnant wife. He praised her wisdom, her shape-shifting abilities, and challenged her to a playful game. "Show me how small you can become," he coaxed. Trusting her husband, Metis transformed herself into a tiny fly. In that instant, with no rage, no passion, just the chilling logic of a king preserving his power, Zeus opened his mouth and swallowed her whole. He didn't just consume his wife, he consumed the threat. He absorbed her wisdom, making it his own, ensuring no one could ever use it against him. It was a terrifyingly brilliant move. The problem, he thought, was solved. But cosmic justice has a strange way of working itself out. Soon after, Zeus began to suffer from a splitting headache. It wasn't just a migraine, it was a torment that shook the heavens. The pain became so unbearable that he commanded Hephaestus, the smith god, to take his mightiest axe and cleave his skull open. Hephaestus, trembling, did as he was told. And from the shattered head of the king of the gods, something miraculous and deeply disturbing happened. A fully grown woman emerged, clad in shining armor, holding a spear, and letting out a triumphant war cry that echoed across creation. This was Athena, the daughter that was promised. She was born not from a womb but from her father's mind, a product of the wisdom he had stolen. By swallowing Metis, Zeus hadn't avoided the prophecy. He had simply birthed it himself in the most violent way imaginable. Athena, however, was a daughter, not the son he feared. She was fiercely loyal to him, a defender of his order. Zeus had survived, but he learned a crucial lesson that day. It wasn't enough to be the strongest. To maintain power, you had to control the board. And so began his true strategy, a masterful, millennia-long game of divine chess. He realized that power isn't just about being the strongest. It's about making sure everyone else fights each other instead of you. He married his sister, Hera, making her the queen of Olympus, but his loyalty was a performance. He embarked on countless affairs with goddesses, nymphs, and mortal women. These weren't just for pleasure, each affair was a strategic move. The children born from these unions, gods and heroes like Apollo, Artemis, Hermes, Dionysus, and Heracles, created a web of competing interests and loyalties. His divine family became a hotbed of jealousy, rivalry, and drama. Hera, consumed by rage at his infidelity, spent her eternal life tormenting his lovers and their children. The other gods were too busy vying for Zeus's favor, plotting against their half-siblings, or cleaning up the messes from their own petty squabbles to ever think about uniting against the one person at the top. Zeus sat on his throne, watching the chaos he had engineered, perfectly safe. He had turned Olympus into a battlefield where he was the only non-combatant. This is the dark and profound lesson at the heart of Hesiod's Theogony, the story of the Greek gods. It tells us that order is born from violence, and that the struggle for power is an eternal repeating cycle. The universe wasn't built on harmony. It was built on a series of bloody coups. Uranus imprisoned his children, so Kronos overthrew him. Kronos swallowed his children, so Zeus overthrew him. And Zeus, to break the cycle, swallowed his own wife and institutionalized conflict to maintain his rule. Does this sound familiar? It should. This isn't just an ancient myth, it's a blueprint for power that we see play out every single day. Look at human history. Dynasties rise and fall on the same cycle of paranoia and betrayal. In the modern world, families destroy each other over inheritance. Corporations swallow their competitors to dominate the market, absorbing their technology and talent, just as Zeus absorbed Metis's wisdom. Politicians sow division and create culture wars, keeping the population arguing amongst themselves so they never look up and question who is actually pulling the strings. The tactics are the same, only the names have changed. We live in a world built on Zeus's model. It's easy to condemn Zeus, to call him a tyrant, a monster, but the myth asks us to look deeper. What is the alternative? If Zeus had let the prophecy unfold, would his son have been a kinder ruler? Or would he have been just as paranoid, just as ruthless, continuing the cycle of violence in his own way? The story suggests there are no easy answers. It presents a universe that is fundamentally chaotic, a constant struggle for dominance. But here's the most powerful idea hidden within this brutal tale. The universe doesn't owe you peace. It doesn't promise you fairness. But it gives you something better, the power to create your own meaning in the chaos. Athena was born from an act of supreme violence and control, yet she became the goddess of wisdom, justice, and civilization. She represents the potential for something noble to emerge from something terrible. We, like the gods, are caught in these cycles of power, conflict, and ambition. We see it in our governments, our workplaces, and sometimes even our own families. We are all players in this cosmic game. So, the myth leaves us with a choice. Not a simple choice between good and evil, but a much harder one. It forces you to ask yourself, if you were Zeus, faced with the certainty of being overthrown, would you swallow your children to stay in power? Or would you risk everything and try to break the cycle? Your answer says a lot about the world you want to live in. Thanks for watching. Let me know your choice in the comments.